She was the girl who once stood outside a boutique, dreaming of shoes she could never afford. Now she walked beside the man who bought them for her. People whispered her story like a miracle. Soft, impossible, almost unreal. But dreams are fragile things, and sometimes love isn't tested by distance, but by the noise of the world watching. Morning sunlight spilled over the towering glass walls of Cole Enterprises, making the entire building shimmer like it was carved from pure dawn. Inside, the lobby buzzed with quiet precision, heels clicking, phones ringing, polite greetings spoken without warmth. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going, and why. And in the middle of that polished, perfect rhythm, walked Ella James. Her steps were small but steady. Her heart fluttered beneath her blouse. Nervous, hopeful, trembling. Yet she kept going. After all, she had promised herself to try. Today was her first day in the Corporate Social Responsibility, CSR department, where the company organized scholarships, medical outreach programs, and charity partnerships. It was a place where lives could quietly be changed. Adrien had chosen it for her carefully. "Oh, you have a heart that sees people," he had told her the night before. "That's something you can't teach or buy, and this company needs that." So now Ella sat at a small desk near a glass wall, surrounded by people in tailored suits and polished confidence. She was dressed simply. A soft cream blouse and a long brown skirt. Her fingers traced the edge of a notebook as she inhaled slowly. She felt out of place, but not unworthy. When she lifted her gaze, she caught her reflection in the glass partition, a girl who used to walk past this building with tired feet and quiet dreams, now sitting inside it. Her eyes softened. "See, Mama," she whispered under her breath, the words barely audible. "I'm trying, I really am." But while Ella carried hope in her heart, the air around her held something else. Eyes that watched too long, whispers that paused when she passed, smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Because in places built from power, kindness is often questioned, and Ella, gentle as sunrise, had unknowingly taken her first step into a world that was ready to test not her ability, but her spirit. At first, the office felt warm. People smiled when she passed. They greeted her softly. Someone even showed her how to access the shared drive. It was polite, friendly, almost welcoming. But smiles in tall buildings often hid questions, and soon the whispers began. "Isn't she the girl from that cafe? I heard she used to mop floors. So how did she get this job? How does she know Mr. Cole?" Ella heard them. Of course she did. But she pretended not to. She kept her eyes on her work. She drafted letters to children's homes. She organized relief supply lists. She read donation requests slowly and carefully, because every story mattered to her. But whispers move like wind. You don't see them, you only feel them. One afternoon, while she stood beside the printer waiting for the pages to slide out, she heard two women behind her. Their voices hushed, but clear enough to wound. "She's sweet, but come on. This job didn't just fall from the sky." Well, maybe it did. Straight from billionaire heaven. Their laughter was soft, but the softness made it sting more. Ella's hands trembled as she picked up the papers. Just slightly. She didn't turn. She didn't explain herself. She didn't ask them to stop. Her mother had taught her long ago. Not every battle is worth words. Some are won in silence. So she returned to her desk. Quiet. Steady. Even though her heart felt heavy inside her chest. That evening, the office slowly emptied. The lights dimmed. Footsteps faded. Doors closed. But Ella stayed. Only her small desk lamp glowed, pooling warm light over stacks of reports. The building outside was dark and endless, but inside her small space, she kept going. Sorting files, replying to emails, rewriting proposals carefully, word by word. She whispered to herself, softly like a prayer, "I belong here. I belong here. I belong here." But even the strongest quiet hearts break sometimes, and as she continued, a single tear slid down her cheek. Quiet. Unannounced. Like a whisper from the past. She wiped it quickly, not because she was ashamed, but because she wanted to finish today with strength. She didn't know someone was watching. Someone who had stopped in the doorway and saw the tear fall. Someone whose presence would change this night. Adrien. Adrien stood at the doorway watching Ella work. She didn't notice him at first. Her head bent over documents, her fingers moving carefully, as if every word mattered. And to her it did. "Ella," he said gently. She startled, then relaxed when she saw him. "Oh, Mr. Cole, I'm sorry, I didn't realize the time." "You don't need to call me that here," he said with a soft smile. "It's just Adrien." She nodded slowly, though her shoulders were still tense. He stepped closer, noticing the stack of completed files, the organized folders, the faint redness around her eyes. "You've been crying," he said quietly. Ella looked down, her voice small but steady. "It's nothing, I'm just adjusting." He pulled a chair and sat beside her. "Talk to me," he said, not as a boss, but as someone who cared. Ella took a shaky breath. "They think I don't deserve to be here," she whispered. "They think I got this job because of you. That I don't belong." Her voice cracked, but she didn't break. "I worked so hard today. I tried so hard. But their words just stick to you, even when you pretend they don't." Adrien listened, really listened, not with sympathy, but with understanding. "Ella," he said softly, "do you remember the first day I saw you at Maison Leclerc?" She nodded. "You stood in the rain, looking at those shoes, as though they were a dream instead of something unreachable. But you didn't look defeated. You looked hopeful." He leaned slightly closer. "That is why you belong anywhere you decide to walk. Not because of me, not because of this building, but because you showed up with a heart that refuses to stop believing." Ella's eyes glistened, not from sadness, but from being seen. He stood and offered his hand, not to hold, but simply to say, "Come, you don't have to finish today alone. Let's go home," he said gently. Outside, the city was quiet and soft under a light drizzle. They walked side by side, not touching, not trying, just existing together in a world that suddenly felt gentle again. They passed Maison Leclerc, the same glowing window that had once held her dream. Ella looked at it and smiled. Not with longing this time, but with quiet pride. Adrien noticed. "You don't have to prove yourself to anyone," he said, his voice warm. "Your kindness is your strength. Don't let the world make you hide it." Ella exhaled, steady. Adrien offered his hand and she took it. They walked side by side, hand in hand, and they talked and laughed. Her laughter soft, but real. For the first time that day, the world felt gentle again. And somewhere nearby, a camera shutter clicked. One photograph, Ella and Adrien, hand in hand, walking and laughing, their smiles easy, unguarded, real. The next morning, the city woke with a spark. Billionaire seen with mystery woman. From cafe girl to company muse. Who is Ella James? Love in the city, the man who could have anyone, and the woman he chose. Screens lit up, phones buzzed, worlds shifted. In one night, Ella's quiet life had been pulled into the center of a story she never asked to tell. This time, the challenge wasn't whispers behind her back, but the spotlight of an entire city watching. By the time she reached the office, the photo had already traveled. From group chats, to office threads, to every hallway. When Ella walked in, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Chairs stilled, eyes turned, not with curiosity, but with expectation. Is it true? Her? With him? Why her? No one asked aloud. But every stare asked for them. Ella kept her gaze down, her breath steady but fragile as glass. She walked to her desk and sat slowly, as though any sudden movement might break something inside her. Her phone buzzed once, then again, then constantly. A relentless vibration against the desk. She picked it up. 40 messages. Old classmates. Former cafe customers. People who never noticed her before. Tell me it's true. Is this how you got the job? Wow, so this is your life now? The words blurred. Her hands trembled as she turned the phone face down. The screen went black, and her reflection stared back at her. Small, unsure, swallowed by a world too loud. The soft confidence she had been building began to slip. The walls of Coal Enterprises, all that glass and gold, had once felt like a dream. Now, they felt like mirrors. Every reflection seemed to whisper, "Do you really belong here?" Ella stood up quietly. She didn't speak to anyone. She didn't answer any questions. She didn't owe the world her story. She left her desk, walked past the stairs, past the whispers, past the glass walls that suddenly felt too transparent. Outside, the city moved as usual. Cars, footsteps, voices. But Ella walked through it in silence, her thoughts louder than the world around her. She didn't rush. She didn't look back. She just needed air. Rain began to fall. Light, misty, familiar. Ella didn't open her umbrella. She kept walking. Not because she was weak, but because she didn't know where her strength was supposed to go now. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Ella sat curled at the edge of her bed, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. The golden shoebox rested on her small table by the window, catching flecks of light. It looked exactly the way it had the night Adrien gave it to her. Elegant, delicate, full of promise. But tonight it felt like it belonged to someone else. Someone braver, someone stronger, someone who deserved it. Ella stared at it with a tight breath, her fingers knotting together in her lap. Her phone buzzed again. Adrien. She stared at his name on the screen, her heart aching. Not from anger, but from fear. What if talking to him made it real? What if talking to him made it worse? She let it ring. Then another message appeared. Not from Adrien, from Ruth. Ella, what's going on? Everyone's talking about you. Are you okay? Ella swallowed hard and pressed call. Ruth picked up immediately. Ella, talk to me. Ella tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I didn't ask for this, Ruth. I didn't want attention. I wanted to work. I wanted to do something that mattered. Her breath shook. Now they think I'm using him. They think I'm some gold digger. They think everything I've done is because of him. Ruth listened quietly, not shocked, not dismissive. Just present, the way real friends are. Ella, she said gently, people will always search for the easiest explanation, and the easiest one is always the ugliest. But you know your heart, and so does he. Ella wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. I wish I could disappear. No, Ruth said softly, but firmly. You don't disappear when storms come, Ella. You hold your umbrella tighter. Ella let that settle in her chest. Not comfort, but courage. When she hung up, the room felt heavier, but steadier. She stood slowly, walked to the table, and picked up the silver ring Adrien had given her. She held it against her palm. Cool, soft, familiar. Then she set it down beside the box and whispered into the quiet. Maybe this is where fairy tales end. Days slipped into weeks. The world kept talking. The headlines didn't fade. The whispers didn't soften. Ella didn't return to Coal Enterprises. She silenced her phone. Adrien's calls went unanswered. Not out of anger, but exhaustion. The noise was too heavy. The stares too sharp. The weight too much for her small, gentle heart. So one morning when the city was still quiet and the air smelled like early sun, Ella walked back to Sweet Bean Cafe. The bell above the door chimed the same soft melody as always. Ruth turned and froze. Ella! You're back? Ella nodded, offering a small, tired smile. Just for a while. The cafe wrapped around her like an old blanket. Worn, warm, familiar. The scent of roasting coffee, the hum of slow jazz, the soft laughter from regulars, the comfort of being nobody special. But even here, whispers found her. Isn't that the billionaire's girlfriend? Why is she back here? Maybe he got tired of her already. The words were not shouted, but they didn't need to be. They carried just fine. Ruth turned sharply, her eyes fierce. Drink your coffee, she snapped at them, and mind your life. Ella almost laughed. Almost. Later, after the cafe closed and the chairs were turned upside down on tables, Ruth sat beside her at the counter. Only the soft light of a single hanging bulb lit the room. Ruth spoke first. her tone calm and clear. You know, sometimes when the world gets too loud, it's not trying to break you. It's testing how much you really want your peace. Ella stared at her hands, fingers laced tightly together. I don't want spotlight, or attention, or rumors. I just want a life that feels quiet, simple, safe. Ruth squeezed her hand. Warm, steady, grounding. Then Ella, maybe it's time to stop running from the thing that scared you. Ella lifted her eyes, confusion and hurt and longing swirling together. Ruth held her gaze. Peace doesn't come from hiding. It comes from facing what tried to take it. Ella exhaled, slow, shaky. She knew Ruth was right. Running had only made the world louder. Somewhere in the city, Adrien was still calling, still dialing her number even when it rang and rang, still staring at the messages he couldn't send, still hoping that silence was not the same as goodbye. He didn't need to hear her voice to know she was hurting. He just didn't know how to reach her without breaking her even more. It was raining again that evening. Not a storm, not a drizzle. A quiet rain, the kind that makes the world whisper instead of speak. Inside Sweet Bean Cafe, the lights were warm and soft. Ella wiped the counter slowly, her movements gentle, almost tired. The day had been long, the thoughts had been heavier. Then, the bell above the door chimed. She turned, and the world seemed to stop. Adrien Cole stood in the doorway. No guards, no umbrella, no polished suit. Just a white shirt soaked through, dark hair damp, raindrops sliding down his face. He looked less like a billionaire tonight, and more like a man who had crossed the city to find something he wasn't willing to lose. He stepped forward, slow, calm, steady. "Ella," he said. Her breath caught. His voice was soft, but his eyes held a hurt he had never let the world see. "I gave you those shoes so you could walk into your dreams," he said quietly. "Why did you stop walking?" Ella swallowed. Her voice came out small, fragile. "Because the world won't stop watching." Adrien exhaled, not frustrated, not angry, just sad. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the rain on him, close enough that her heart began to ache in her chest. His eyes softened. "Then let's walk where the world can't see." Behind the counter, Ruth froze mid-step, eyes wide. She whispered to herself, "Oh my goodness, he really came." But she didn't interrupt. She quietly slipped into the kitchen and closed the door. Giving them a moment meant only for them. Outside, the rain tapped softly on the windows, a steady, rhythmic hush, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Adrien lifted his hand, not demanding, not claiming, simply offering, an invitation, not to a place, but to courage. "Come with me," he whispered. Ella looked at his hand. The same hand that once placed kindness in hers. The same hand that had held no expectations, only sincerity. And this time, she didn't doubt. She didn't question. She didn't fear. She placed her hand in his. Their fingers fit together gently, like something that had always been waiting to happen. Adrien's shoulders relaxed, as though he had finally found what he'd been searching for all this time. He didn't pull her. He simply guided her toward the door. The rain met them as they stepped outside, cool, clean, soft against their skin. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They walked, side by side, not as a billionaire and a cafe girl, but as two hearts, choosing each other in the rain. The drive was long and quiet. No music, no small talk, just the soft hum of the engine and the sound of rain fading behind them. City lights slowly melted into distant glimmers. Skyscrapers gave way to winding country roads. Concrete softened into fields of gold and green. Ella kept her gaze on the window, but her thoughts stayed on the hand that still held hers. Not tightly, not possessively, just there. When the car finally slowed to a stop, the silence felt different. Softer, lighter. Ella stepped out, and the breath caught in her chest. They stood on a small hill, open and quiet, overlooking a vast stretch of earth that seemed to reach all the way to tomorrow. The sky stretched endless above them, and the wind carried the scent of grass and soft memory. Wildflowers swayed, gentle, unbothered by the world. Ella had never seen anything so peaceful. Adrien stood beside her, his gaze distant, thoughtful. "This was my mother's favorite place," he said quietly. "When life felt heavy, when people expected too much, she came here to remember what truly mattered." Ella listened, not to reply but to understand. He reached into his coat and pulled out a letter, the edges worn, the paper soft from being opened many times. He unfolded it with a tenderness that told her he had memorized every word long ago. His voice was steady but soft when he read, "If you ever meet someone who reminds you that love can still be kind, do not let her go because the world disapproves. The world always disapproves before it understands." Ella felt her heart swell, slowly, achingly. A tear slipped down before she could hold it. "She wrote that for you," she whispered. He nodded. "For me, and for the day I finally listened." The wind moved through the grass around them, slow, gentle, almost like a lullaby. Ella closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, the noise stopped. The whispers faded. The fear loosened its grip. Peace did not come in a grand moment. It came quietly, like a small bird returning to a nest it always remembered. She opened her eyes and looked at Adrien. Really looked. He wasn't the billionaire now. He wasn't the headlines. He wasn't the chaos. He was a man standing in the place his mother once stood, trying to protect the softness inside him. And she understood. Love wasn't the problem. The world was. But love was the answer. Ella stepped closer. Not to speak. Not to promise. Simply to be there. And Adrien let out a breath he had been holding for years. The next morning the world was soft. The sky was pale and washed with early sunlight. The streets still damp from last night's rain. Adrien drove quietly, one hand on the wheel, the other resting just close enough to Ella's. Not touching, but near. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Sometimes silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's the safest place to rest. The city slowly returned around them. The tall buildings, the morning buses, the soft buzz of life waking up. But inside the car, time still felt slow, almost gentle. When the car reached Ella's street, she turned to him. Her voice was soft but steady this time. The kind of steady that comes from finding herself again. "Adrien, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have run away." He looked at her, his eyes warm, not disappointed, not hurt, just understanding. He shook his head. "You didn't run, Ella. You were overwhelmed. You needed space to breathe." "That's not weakness. It's being human." Her chest loosened with relief. He looked forward for a moment, thinking, choosing his words with care. "I used to think love had to be loud," he admitted. "Grand gestures, headlines, perfect photographs, something the world could applaud." His voice softened, turned inward. "But now I know. Love is strongest when it's quiet, when it's gentle, when it doesn't try to prove anything to anyone." Ella felt the words settle deep in her heart. "Quiet and real," she said. He nodded, a small, genuine nod. Especially then. She opened the car door, the cool morning air brushing against her skin. But before she stepped out, she leaned in just enough for him to hear her whisper. "Thank you for finding me again." He didn't hesitate. "I never stopped looking." Their eyes held, warm, sincere, full of something unnamed but understood. No dramatic kiss, no cinematic music, just two souls, choosing each other in the quiet. Ella stepped out of the car, closed the door gently, and stood there for a moment, watching him drive away slowly, not disappearing, just giving her space to walk again, on her own feet. And for the first time in a long while, Ella didn't feel afraid. Days passed gently. The world didn't go silent. Whispers still existed. Rumors still fluttered. But Ella no longer felt like she was drowning in them. Something inside her had settled. Soft, steady, growing. Meanwhile, Cole Enterprises buzzed with preparations for its annual charity gala. The event of the year. A night of chandeliers and glassware, gowns and cameras. A night where power dressed itself in elegance. People whispered about the guest list. Celebrities, governors, business giants. Everyone expected Adrien Cole to stand on stage and shine. But Adrien was thinking of something else entirely. That afternoon, a small envelope appeared at Ella's door. Not delivered by a driver, Not sealed in gold, just a simple folded note. Handwritten, the ink soft and familiar. She opened it carefully. Come tonight. No expectations, just presence. Adrien? Ella stared at the words for a long time. No pressure, no demands, no proving, just presence. She closed her eyes and whispered to the quiet room. Okay. Evening arrived slowly like a deep breath. The sky outside her window glowed lavender and soft rose. City lights beginning to flicker awake. Ella walked to her small table. The golden shoebox still sat there, untouched since she placed it down the night the world grew too loud. She untied the ribbon carefully. Slower this time. Not with trembling hands, but with hands that finally felt ready. The shoes gleamed softly, like light had been waiting inside them. Ella touched them gently, her voice barely above a whisper. This time, I'll walk proud. Ella crossed to her closet. She didn't own many dresses. Just one she had bought long ago and never found the courage to wear. A soft evening gown, light, flowing, gentle. The color was a quiet rose, like the sky before sunrise. It rested on her shoulders like it had been waiting for her. She slipped the gown on slowly. No diamonds, no glitter, just soft fabric and quiet breath. The silver ring Adrien had given her rested on her finger. Simple, steady, familiar. Then she reached for the shoes. She touched them first. Not to admire them, but to remember why she stopped being afraid. She slipped them on. They fit the same, but she was no longer the same girl who first wore them. Ella stood before the mirror. Her reflection wasn't loud, wasn't trying, just peaceful. She lifted her chin and breathed. Mama, I'm still trying. This time, I'm not running. Then she stepped out the door, and for the first time, the shoes didn't feel like a dream she reached for. They felt like a dream she was stepping into. The ballroom glowed beneath sweeping crystal chandeliers. Golden, warm, brilliant. Soft music drifted across marble floors. Cameras flashed like stars, igniting in bursts of silver-white light. Adrien Cole moved through it all with quiet grace. Polite nods, practiced handshakes, measured smiles. But his eyes searched the room for someone who had not yet come. Reporters gathered near the front, eager, hungry. Mr. Cole, over here. A statement, please. Who is your date tonight? He didn't stop to answer. When he stepped onto the stage, the room stilled. Not because he was wealthy, but because he carried silence with authority. He didn't talk about business or power. His voice was calm, clear, human. We build towers to touch the sky, he began. But sometimes, in trying to rise high, we forget the ground that holds us. The ballroom listened, not out of formality, but because his words reached them. Real success is not in what we own, he continued, but in who we choose to see, and how we choose to treat them. A hush, a breath, a pause suspended in time. Adrien's gaze shifted toward the grand entrance. The doors opened, and Ella walked in. She remembered his words. When you wear them, walk like the world finally noticed you. So she walked, not timidly, not apologizing for her space, but with soft, grounded confidence, the kind of confidence born from finding herself again. The lights caught her. Not like a spotlight demanding attention, but like sunrise finding something worthy of warmth. Her gown flowed like gentle river silk. Her golden shoes shimmered with every step. Her hair framed her face simply. Her eyes were steady, quiet, brave. A voice all their own. She did not rush. She did not shrink. She arrived. Whispers rippled, sharp, astonished, stunned. Someone gasped. Someone dropped their champagne flute. Someone whispered, "That's her." "But Adrien!" Adrien smiled, a real smile, a found-you-again smile. He stepped forward, returning to the microphone. His voice was steady, certain. "You all know my name," he said. "But tonight you'll learn hers." Every head turned, every camera lifted, every breath held. "Ella James." The woman who reminded me that kindness builds more than towers ever could. Silence, thick, suspended, like the world itself paused to take it in. Then, applause, not polite, not forced, Not curious. Applause that felt like recognition. Ella's heart trembled, but her steps did not. She walked forward, and Adrien walked down from the stage to meet her. Not to lead her, but to stand beside her. Equal! And in that moment, for the first time since the whispers began, the whispers died. After the gala ended and the last of the applause faded, Adrien and Ella slipped quietly outside. The night air was cool, the gentle kind that carries soft breezes and deep breaths. The city lights shimmered like scattered stars across glass windows and wet pavement. They didn't rush. They didn't speak at first. They simply walked, side by side, down the same street where everything began. The boutique window still glowed, displaying new shoes and glittering silk. A world behind glass. But this time, Ella didn't stop to look. She no longer needed to. Adrien glanced at her, his voice quiet. Meant for her alone. The world finally noticed you, he said. Ella smiled, calm, sure, steady. You told me to wear the shoes and walk like I belonged, she whispered. So tonight, I walked. Adrien stopped walking then, not dramatically, just enough to really look at her. The golden shoes, the quiet glow in her eyes, the woman who had grown through storms and still stayed gentle. A softness touched his expression. You were never invisible, Ella, he said. The world just needed time to open its eyes. Ella felt her chest warm. Not with pride, but with something deeper. Recognition, belonging, choice. They continued walking, laughter slipping into the air, light and unforced. Their shadows stretched long across the pavement. Two shapes moving forward side by side. Two souls, no longer running from the world, finally free enough to walk into it. Together. Ella James once watched her dreams through a window, but she learned to walk inside them, not because the world chose her, but because she chose herself. And when she did, the world followed. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments, and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to Folktales by Olivia for more emotional and unforgettable stories. Until we meet again, stay kind, stay hopeful. Keep watching.